Shalom, my name is Adam, and I welcome you to the parable of the vineyard. Every day, Yahuah is waking up a remnant, a group of people who are coming out of deceptions, realizing our walk is to consist of faith and obedience to His righteous commands. Each week, we read through and examine a portion of the Torah, allowing the Spirit of the Most High to guide, teach, and open our eyes and ears to the wondrous matters out of His law. Join us as we seek to be refined by His Word, preparing ourselves for the return of our King of Kings, being faithful and obedient, walking in His way, truth, and life. Shabbat Shalom, brothers and sisters, and welcome back to the Parable of the Vineyard YouTube Torah portions. This is week 27, Tazria, and this covers Leviticus chapters 12 and 13. This covers the woman's uncleanness period after she gives birth to a child, male or female, and the leper, which we'll talk obviously quite a bit about that tonight. That'll be the bulk of tonight's discussion. But really, how what was this word that was translated to leprosy, how this really has so much to do in the spiritual realm now, in today's day and age. Because what we'll find is the leprosy itself was a manifestation in the skin for one's inward spiritual condition or sin or disobedience. It manifested itself in the skin. In today's day and age, we don't have the temple, so we don't have the way of getting cleansed the right way, so things manifest in different ways, which we'll talk about a little bit shortly. So with that, we'll get started with a quick prayer, and we'll get into it, because this is going to probably be a longer Torah portion too. So let's bow our hearts. Heavenly Father, Yahuah, we come before you in Yahusha's name, and we thank you for allowing us to gather together like this to study your word. O Yahuah, as the psalmist had written, open our eyes that we may behold the wondrous things written in your Torah, and help us to turn our eyes from looking at worthless things, O Yahuah. Open our eyes and ears that we may be hearers and doers of your word, O Yahuah Most High. We bless you in Yahusha's name, and we thank you for all things. Amen. Okay, so we are here in Leviticus, and let me just, I thought I had it pulled up the right way, but I don't. Let me just a moment. Sorry about that. Okay, here we go. And we are at chapter 12. So if you're just joining us, we've been discussing all through Leviticus about the spiritual connotations or the spiritual application for a lot of these sacrifices back in the day, what they were meant, what was meant by them, the implications of them, and kind of how we can apply them to our walk now at a time where we're not giving up sacrifices by animal blood and flesh, but by offering up ourselves, prayer, things like that. So today we're going to start in Leviticus 12:1. And let's read about it. So, and Yahuah, and actually before, just a little disclaimer, I'm a student of the Torah. I know that what I do puts me in a teaching type role, and I'm not excusing myself for the implications for someone that speaks publicly about the scriptures, about how I'll be accountable for all things that I say. I acknowledge that, but I'm letting you know as the listener that I am a student of the Torah, and I invite you to study with me, and we can test or we can learn and grow together. And there'll be some things that you might agree with and some things that you don't agree with, but that happens, quite frankly, with almost any conversation with a believer in today's world. So let's go. Leviticus 12:1. And Yahuah spoke unto Moshe, saying, Speak unto the children of Yisrael, saying, If a woman have conceived seed and born a male child, then she shall be unclean 7 days, according to the days of the separation. For her infirmity, she shall be unclean. Now, one thing I don't think we really haven't spoken of too much yet in Leviticus yet is, what does unclean mean? Unclean doesn't necessarily mean sin. So, like when you're unclean, it doesn't necessarily mean sin. You're just not clean. You cannot enter into the tabernacle. You cannot, come to the tabernacle. You're spiritually unclean, or physically unclean. Really, actually, it was a lot of the applications here. But what we'll see here is, spiritual uncleanness for some of the things to come when it comes to leprosy in the next chapter, the next couple chapters, actually. But just because the woman, bore a child, her uncleanness, right, isn't like she's like sinful and punished, because of it. We'll actually read why this was implemented and where this came from, actually, in Jubilees chapter 3, verses 6 through 15. But let's keep going. And on the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. And she shall then continue in the blood of her purifying 3 and 30 days, so 33 days. She shall touch no hallowed thing, nor come into the sanctuary until the days of her purifying be fulfilled. So a total of 40 days from childbirth to being able to enter and offer the offering, which we'll see here in a second. It's 40 days for a male. But if she bear a female child, then she shall be unclean 2 weeks, as in her separation, and she shall continue in the blood of her purifying 66 days, so 66 days, plus the 14 now we're looking at 80, so double. So 40 days for a male, 80 days for a female. And when the days of her purifying are fulfilled for a son or for a daughter, she shall bring a lamb of the first year for a burnt offering, and a young pigeon or a turtle dove for a sin offering, unto the door of the tabernacle of the assembly unto the priest. Now, this is kind of a little interesting, right? So, why a sin offering? Is bearing a child sinful? No. We can actually look at, I didn't have it pulled up, but, we can look at Genesis 3. And when they were kicked out, because of the sin, unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception in sorrow. Thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. And so we can see this process of painful childbirth and all of the blood and all that kind of stuff. That's punishment for the what people call the original sin. I'm not going to get into the original sin doctrine, but what's called the first sin. The first sin. It was initiated by Eve and then perpetrated by Adam, and they were kicked out. And that was the very first punishment upon mankind, was for the woman to bear in extreme pain. So, this sin offering could be a reminder for the very first sin. That's something to consider. We do see this here in Psalm 51:5. Behold, I was shapen in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me. I don't believe that the act of mating is sinful. The marriage bed is actually, it's a good thing. It's a beautiful thing. But I think if we could pinpoint why the sin offering and why the conception in sin is because of the original transgression, and the very first punishment ever imposed on mankind was given to woman. And I can tell you, as a father of 5 children, while I didn't bear them myself, I was right there, and for all 5 of them, and wow, what an experience, and a lot of pain. Wow. So I get why the scriptures, when referring to pain, refers to as a woman with child brings forth. I get it. I kind of get it. I know you women out there that bore a child, they're like, oh, you don't get it. You have no idea. I do and I don't. You're right, I don't, but I kind of do. Anyways. I don't want to get off topic. But, so why sin offering? That would be my only understanding. And someone out there may have a better explanation than that. I am open ears. I'd love to hear it. So anyway, so they bring the lamb and a young pigeon or a turtle dove for a sin offering, who shall offer it before Yahuwah and make an atonement for her. So there is a forgiveness of atoning need to be done here. And again, that's really the only thing I could think of. I'm really, really highly open to hearing other understandings. And she shall be cleansed from the issue of her blood. This is the Torah for her that has borne a male or a female. And if she be not able to bring a lamb, then she shall bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, the one for the burnt offering and the other for a sin offering, and the priest shall make an atonement for her, and she shall be clean. So if she's poor, instead of one lamb and 1 bird, 2 birds, right? So interesting here, we can kind of get an idea of Yahusha's family situation. Luke 2:22-24, and when the days of her purification, this is Miriam, and when the days of her purification according to the Torah of Moshe were accomplished, they brought him into Jerusalem to present him to Yahuwah, as it is written in the Torah of Yahuwah, every male that openeth the womb shall be called holy to Yahuwah, and to offer a sacrifice according to that which is said in the Torah of Yahuwah, a pair of turtle doves or 2 young pigeons. So, as we just read, if they're not able to provide the lamb, it's more than likely because they were poor. We see here that perhaps the family that Yahusha came from was not very wealthy, because they brought 2 birds instead of a lamb and a bird. So maybe speculation, maybe concrete evidence, don't know, but it's an interesting look into the concept of the family that Yahusha came from. And it makes sense, right? Because he came totally humble. It would make sense that he came from a lowly family. Just like we see all throughout, look at David. He was the least of his family. Gideon was the least tribe of the least. And, Saul, before he turned bad, he was from the smallest tribe, Benjamin, of the lowest family. So this is a common thread here of Yahweh's anointed, right? Someone that's anointed. So we're going to turn to Jubilees 3, and what we're going to look at now is why the 40 days, why all these different days, why can't they come certain days, why they unclean certain days. Jubilees 3, 6-15. And he awakened Adam out of his sleep. On awakening, he rose on the 6th day, and he brought her to him, and he knew her, and said unto her, This is now bone of my bones, and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called my woman, because she was taken from her man. Therefore shall a man and a woman be one, and therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and cleave unto his woman, and they shall be one flesh. In the first week was Adam created, and the rib his woman in the 2nd week. He showed her unto him, and for this reason the commandment was given to keep in their defilement for a male 7 days, and for a female twice 7 days. So this goes back to the order of creation. Adam was created in the first week, and in Jubilees, weeks are weeks of years, so 7 years. So Adam was created in the first 7 years. Eve was created in the second 7 years, so in the first 14 years. At least this is according to Jubilees. In general, I think Jubilees is a phenomenal book. Is it perfect? I don't think so, but I think this is the best explanation I've seen for why the 7 days, the 14 days, the 33 days, and the 40 days, and the 66 days, and the 80 days, and you'll see. And after Adam had completed 40 days in the land where he had been created, we brought him into the Garden of Eden to till and to guard it. But his woman they brought in on the 80th day, and after this she entered into the Garden of Eden. And for this reason, so maybe in this week, maybe this was actually a literal week. Excuse me, most of this book, so forgive me, I take that back. So most of this book, when it talks about a week, talks about a week of years, but I think in this case, it's got to be a literal week and then a 2nd week. So to keep the numbers right, forgive me. So again, Adam was brought into the Garden of Eden in the 40th day. But his woman they brought in on the 80th day, and after this she entered into the Garden of Eden. And for this reason the commandment is written on the heavenly tablets in regard to her that gives birth. If she bears a male, she shall remain in her uncleanness 7 days, according to the first week of days, and 30 and 3 days shall she remain in the blood of her purifying, and she shall not touch any sanctified thing, nor enter into the sanctuary, until she accomplishes these days which are enjoined in the case of a male child. But in the case of a female child, she shall remain in her uncleanness 2 weeks of days, according to the first 2 weeks and 66 days in the blood of her purification, and they will be in all 80 days. And when she had completed these 80 days, we brought her into the Garden of Eden, for it is holier than all the earth besides, and every tree that is planted in it is holy. Therefore there was ordained regarding her who bears a male or a female child, the statute of those days, that she should touch no sanctified thing, nor enter into the sanctuary until these days for the male or female child are accomplished. This is the Torah and the testimony which was written down for Yisrael, in order that they should observe all the days. And in the first week of the first Jubilee, Adam and his woman were in the Garden of Eden for 7 years, tilling and guarding it, and we gave him work, and we instructed him to do everything that is suitable for tillage. So I do believe this is the best explanation as to why. There is one other explanation in the first book of Adam and Eve, but I didn't feel that was as correct as this one, so that's why I decided to share this one with you all. So, okay, so I think that explains it, so we can move on to chapter 13. Give me just a moment. Okay, chapter 13. Laws about leprosy. Let's look at the Hebrew word. The Hebrew word is tzara'at, right? In people, malignant skin disease. In clothing, a mildew or a mold. In buildings, a mildew or a mold. Right, leprosy, for the black leprosy is elephantitis, a nitrous scab in the garments. So this is a tzara'at. This is a physical, again, this is a physical manifestation on the flesh for something that is from within, and it is given by Yahuwah, and it is taken away by Yahuwah. What we'll find is that a lot of times it has to do with not hearkening to Yahuwah himself, or not hearkening to the words of a prophet, or not hearkening to the Torah itself. And let's actually, you know what, let me do this. Start with Exodus 4. Moshe answered and said, but behold, they will not believe me. So this is when Yahuwah was like, you're going to speak unto the people. But he's like, what if they won't listen to me? Right? So remember, Moshe is the prophet, and he's asking, what if they won't listen to me, or hearken unto my voice? For they'll say, Yahuwah has not appeared unto thee. And Yahuwah said unto him, what is that? And so let's skip down here. So Moshe is asking, what if they don't hearken to me? So basically he's asking, what if they don't hearken to the prophet? Verse 6, and Yahuwah said furthermore unto him, put now thine hand into thy bosom. And he put his hand into his bosom, and when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous as snow. And he said, put thine hand into thine bosom again. And he put it into his hand into his bosom again, and he plucked it out of his bosom, and behold, it was turned again as his other flesh. So here we see the perfect example. Yahuwah gave the leprosy, Yahuwah took away the leprosy. And again, this stemmed as a sign. Yahuwah was showing them, hey, if they don't hearken, right, show them the sign of leprosy, and then show them, me taking it away, right? So they'll be like, ooh, Numbers 12, 1 through 15. And Miriam and Aharon spake against Moshe because of the Ethiopian woman whom he had married, for he had married an Ethiopian woman. And they said, hath Yahuwah indeed spoken only by Moshe? Hath he not also spoken by us? And Yahuwah heard it. Now the man Moshe was very meek, very humble above all the men which were upon the face of the earth. And Yahuwah spake suddenly unto Moshe, and unto Aaron, and to Miriam, Come ye three out unto the tabernacle of the congregation. And they three came out. And Yahuwah came down in a pillar of the cloud, and stood in the door of the tabernacle, and called Aaron and Miriam, and they both came forth. And he said, Hear now my words. If there be a prophet among you, I, Yahuwah, will make himself known unto him in a vision, and I will speak unto him in a dream. My servant Moshe is not so, who is faithful in all mine house. With him will I speak mouth to mouth, even apparently, and not in dark speeches, right? Parables, and the similitude of Yahuwah shall he behold. Wherefore then were ye not afraid to speak against my servant Moshe, or you can even say speak against my prophet Moshe? And the anger of Yahuwah was kindled against them, and he departed. And the cloud departed from off the tabernacle, and behold, Miriam became leprous, white as snow. And Aaron looked upon Miriam, and behold, she was leprous. Right? And Aaron said unto Moshe, Alas, my Adonai, I beseech thee, lay not thy sin upon us, wherein we have done foolishly, and wherein we have sinned. Let her not be as one dead, of whom the flesh is half consumed, when he cometh out of his mother's womb. And Moshe cried unto Yahuwah, saying, Heal her now, O Elohim, I beseech you. And Yahuwah said unto Moshe, If her father had but spit in her face, should she not be ashamed 7 days? Let her be shut out from the camp 7 days, and after that let her be received again. And Miriam was shut out from the camp 7 days, and the people journeyed not until Miriam was brought in again. So here, another example of Yahuwah gave the leprosy, and Yahuwah took the leprosy away. And again, it had something to do here with not hearkening. It wasn't in this case. It wasn't necessarily not hearkening to, but bad mouthing a prophet of the Most High. Here's an interesting passage as well. 2 Kings 5. Again, we're kind of setting the stage here for tzara'at, leprosy. Well, it's translated as leprosy. Now, Naaman, captain of the host of the king of Syria, was a great man with his master, and honorable, because by him Yahuwah had given deliverance unto Syria. He was also a mighty man in valor, but he was tzara'at, he was a leper. And the Syrians had gone out by companies, and had brought away captive out of the land of Israel a little maid, and she waited on Naaman's wife. And she said unto her mistress, Why, or would Elohim my Lord were with the Would Elohim my Lord were with the prophet that is in Samaria. And this is Elisha. For he would recover him of his tzara'at, his leprosy. And one went in and told his Adonai, saying, Thus and thus said the maid that is of the land of Israel. And the king of Syria said, Go, and I will send a letter unto the king of Israel. And he departed, and took with him 10 talents of silver, and 6,000 pieces of gold, and 10 changes of raiment. And he brought the letter to the king of Israel, saying, Now when this letter is come unto thee, behold, I have therewith sent Naaman my servant to thee, that thou mayest recover him of his leprosy. And it came to pass, when the king of Israel had read the letter, that he rent his clothes, and said, Am I God, or am I Elohim, to kill and to make alive, that this man doth send unto me to recover a man of his leprosy? Wherefore consider, I pray you, and see how he seeketh a quarrel against me. And it was so, when Elisha the man of Elohim had heard that the king of Israel had rent his clothes, he sent to the king, saying, Why have you rent your clothes? Let him come now to me, and he shall know that there is a prophet in Israel. So Naaman came with his horses and with his chariot, and stood at the door of the house of Elisha. And Elisha sent a messenger unto him, saying, Go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and thy flesh shall come again to thee, and thou shalt be clean. So here we have someone with tzara'at, and we have a prophet giving a proclamation, a decree. But Naaman was wroth, and he went away and said, Behold, I thought that he would surely come out to me, and stand and call on the name of Yahuwah Elohim, and strike his hand over the place, and recover the leper. Right? So do some great thing, right? Are not Abna and the Parfar, the Farpar rivers of Damascus better than all the waters of Israel? May I not wash in them and be clean? So he turned away and went and raged, right? So he's thinking some amazing thing was going to happen. He was going to come out and wave his hand around and do this thing, do a big show or something, and be healed. And his servants came near and spake to him and said, My father, if the prophet had bid you to do some great thing, would you not have done it? Right, like a like a great journey. Like you need to go to these far distant mountains, and you need to get this herb. It's on the top of the mountain. You gotta fight this troll, and once you fight the troll, you get this herb, and you come back, and then we'll do this and that and that and this. You know, he's like, wouldn't you have done it? Well, Naaman would be like, yeah, let's, you know. But he's like, how much rather than when he said to thee, wash and be clean, right? Something simple, just go wash and be clean. So obviously he came to his senses, and he hearkened to the prophet, and then he went down and dipped himself 7 times in Jordan, and according to the saying of the man of Elohim, and his flesh came again like unto the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. So here we don't know exactly why he was stricken with leprosy. We don't get that part of the story, but here we see hearkening to the prophet, hearkening to the word of Elohim through the prophet, and he was made clean by hearkening unto the word. And he returned to the man of Elohim, and he and all his company, and came and stood before him, and said, Behold, now I know that there is no Elohim in all the earth, but in Israel. Now therefore I pray thee, take a blessing of thy servant. Oops. And he said, As Yahuah liveth, before whom I stand, I will receive none. And he urged him to take it, but he refused. And Naaman said, Shall there not then, I pray thee, be given to thy servants 2 mules, burden of earth? For thy servant will henceforth offer neither burnt offering nor sacrifice unto other Elohim, but unto Yahuah. And this thing, Yahuah, pardon thy servant, that when my master goeth into the house of Rimmon to worship there, and he leaneth on my hand, and I bow myself in the house of Rimmon, when I bow down myself in the house of Rimmon, Yahuah, pardon thy servant in this thing. And he said unto him, Go in peace. So he departed from him a little way. But Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of Elohim, said, Behold, my master hath spared Naaman the Syrian, and not receiving at his hands that which he brought. But as Yahuah liveth, I will run after him, and take somewhat of him. So Gehazi followed after Naaman, and when Naaman saw him running after him, he lighted down from the chariot to meet him, and said, Is all well? And he said, All is well. My master hath sent me, saying, Behold, even now there be come to me from Mount Ephraim 2 young men, the sons of prophets. Give them, I pray thee, a talent of silver and 2 changes of garments. And Naaman said, Be content, take 2 talents. And he urged him, and bound 2 talents of silver in 2 bags, with 2 changes of garments, and laid them upon 2 of his servants, and they bare them before him. And when he came to the tower, he took them from their hand, and bestowed them in the house, and he let the men go, and they departed. But he went in and stood before his master. And Elisha said unto him, Whence comest thou, Gehazi? And he said, Thy servant went no whither. I didn't go anywhere. And he said to him, Went not mine heart with thee, when the man turned again from his chariot to meet thee? Is it a time to receive money, and to receive garments, and oliveyards, and vineyards, and sheep, and oxen, and menservants, and maidservants? The leprosy, therefore, of Naaman shall cleave unto thee, and unto thy seed forever. And he went out from his presence as a leper, white as snow. So here we see hearkening to the prophet, hearkening to the word of Elohim through a prophet, and the leprosy being cleansed. And here we see the servant of Elisha not hearkening to the word of the prophet, disobeying what the prophet said, that we were not going to receive anything. He disobeyed, and he took on the leprosy himself. Let's see another example. 2 Chronicles 26. Then all the people of Judah took Uzziah, who was 16 years old, and made him king in the room of his father Amaziah. He built Eloth and restored it to Judah. After that the king slept with his fathers. 16 years old was Uzziah when he began to reign, and he reigned 52 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name also was Jechaliah of Jerusalem. He did that which was right in the sight of Yahuah, according to all that his father Amaziah did. And he sought Elohim in the days of Zechariah, who had understanding in the visions of Elohim. And as long as he sought Yahuah, Elohim made him to prosper. And he went forth and warred against the Philistines, and brake down the walls of Gath, and the wall of Jabneh, and the walls of Ashdod, and built cities about Ashdod among the Philistines. And Elohim helped him against the Philistines, and against the Arabians that dwelt in Gurbal, and the Mehunims. And the Ammonites gave gifts to Uzziah, and his name spread abroad even to the entering of Egypt, for he strengthened himself exceedingly. Moreover, Uzziah built towers in Jerusalem at the corner gate, at the valley gate, and the turning of the wall, and fortified them. Let's keep going. He had won many battles, did great things, did amazing things. But when he was strong, his heart was lifted up to his destruction. For he transgressed against Yahuah Elohim and went into the temple of Yahuah to burn incense upon the altar of incense. So he's like, I'm going to ignore the Torah of Yahuah, and I'm going to go, and I'm the king. I'm going to go in and burn incense, right? And Azariah the priest went in after him, and with him 80 priests of Yahuah that were valiant men, right? These were these men were strong. They're brave. They knew this is the king. The king can put them all to death. But they were valiant for Yahuah. And they withstood Uzziah the king and said unto him, It appertaineth not unto thee, Uzziah, to burn incense unto Yahuah, but to the priests, the sons of Aharon, that are consecrated to burn incense. Go out of the sanctuary, for thou hast trespassed, neither shall it be for thine honor from Yahuah the Elohim. So instead of humbling himself and hearkening to the priests, or they might have been prophets, then Uzziah was wroth, and had a censer in his hand to burn incense. And while he was wroth with the priests, the leprosy even rose up in his forehead before the priests in the house of Yahuah from beside the incense altar. And Azariah the chief priest and all the priests looked upon him, and behold, he was leprous in his forehead, and they thrust him out from thence. Yea, himself also hasted out to go, because Yahuah had smitten him. And Uzziah the king was a leper unto the day of his death, and dwelt in a separated house, being a leper, tzaraat, for he was cut off from the house of Yahuah. And Jotham his son was over the king's house, judging the people of the land. So here again, we see that leprosy, this manifestation in the skin, was because of transgression, or sinful nature, or disobedience to the word, or disobedience to a proclamation from a prophet, or things like that. So here we can see how leprosy comes about, right? We don't get a whole lot in the Torah of why leprosy comes about, but here we have all these examples of why it came out, and it's because of the spiritual condition or a sinful condition that one is in. So while we, at this time, we don't have people that fall into sin and transgress the Torah, transgress commandment, and they just break out leprosy. It manifests itself in a different way. So again, let's say you've got an inner problem, right? This is back in the old days. You have an inner problem, and it comes to the surface of your body through your skin, manifesting itself through these lesions or these. There's different versions of this condition. Leprosy isn't just one condition. There's different types of conditions, as we'll read here. But on our time, it's like when people have a spiritual condition and they're spiritually unclean, they're tzaraat inside. It manifests through their mouth, through their actions, through their deeds, right? And if we have people close to us, near us, that people can't help themselves. They can't hide this condition within themselves, and they make themselves manifest of exactly their condition. So the same thing happens today, but more of in a spiritual connotation, spiritual manner, if that makes sense. So Leviticus 13, and Yahuah spoke unto El Moshe and El Aharon, saying, When a man shall have in the skin of his flesh a rising, a scab, or a bright spot, so we have different types of tzaraat, and it be in the skin of his flesh like the plague of leprosy, then he shall be brought unto El Aharon the priest, or unto one of his sons the priests. And the priest shall look upon the plague in the skin of the flesh, and when the hair in the plague is turned white, and the plague in the sight be deeper than the skin of his flesh, it is a plague of leprosy, right? So if it's not just skin deep, if it goes deeper, right? It's like a deeper it's like a deeper problem. It's like, the problem manifests itself. The person has to go to the priest inspects it, right? They look upon it, they inspect it, they evaluate what's going on. And if it's deeper than the flesh, right? If it's deeper than the of his flesh, it is a leprosy. It is tzaraat. And the priest shall look on him and pronounce him unclean. If the bright spot be white in the skin of the flesh, and in sight be not deeper than the skin, and the hair thereof be not turned white, then the priest shall shut him up that has the plague 7 days, right? So, but going back here to the hair turning white, so if the hair is turned white and the plague deeper, right, it is unclean. And what's interesting about this is Yahusha acknowledges this fact, and he says, Matthew 5:36, Neither shalt thou swear by thy head, because thou canst not make one hair white or black. But who can? Yahuah. Who can give leprosy? Tzaraat. Yahuah. Who can take it away? Yahuah. right? Who can make one hair white or black? Yahuah. Oops, wrong study. Okay. If the bright spot be white in the skin of this flesh, and in sight be not deeper than the skin, and the hair thereof be not turned white, then the priest shall shut him up that has the plague 7 days. So it was a period of a week, right, until things are evaluated again. And the priest shall look on him on the 7th day, and behold, if the plague in his sight be at a stay, and the plague spread not in the skin, then the priest shall shut him up 7 days more, right? So they get evaluated every 7 days. This is structure, it's order, according to a week, right? So things happen, I guess, according to a week in this realm. And the priest shall look on him again the 7th day, and behold, if the plague be somewhat dark, and the plague spread not in the skin, the priest shall pronounce him clean. It is but a scab, and he shall wash his clothes and be clean. But if the scab spread much abroad in the skin, after that he has been seen of the priest for his cleansing, he shall be seen of the priest again. And if the priest see that, behold, the scab spreads in the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a tzara'at, it is a leprosy. So, I know a lot of us are just scattered online here. If you're listening to this, a lot of your fellowship is online, but, maybe some of you have some local fellowship. Hopefully your local fellowship has some sort of type of leadership that, when problems arise, when spiritual issues arise, they can inspect the individual as to exactly their condition and what's going on, and what is manifesting itself in them, and act accordingly. And I do believe that there is a point, if someone becomes so profane that they would be set outside the camp, which we'll see here. Actually, I don't know. We read about this. Yeah, we do read about it in this passage about how they are set outside of the camp, right? They need to be separated from the people. Well, how much even more so in a spiritual condition that someone might be in a tzara'at, a leprosy of a type of spiritual condition of somebody. So if we've got local fellowships and this tzara'at breaks out, in a spiritual manifestation within somebody, it needs to be dealt with. And if it gets to a point that's so bad, it breaks out all over the place, like how it broke out all over the skin we're reading here, but it breaks out in their life. There should be, some review. And if the person does not hearken or repent, or like we see, how this whole condition of leprosy comes about by not hearkening to leadership, or not hearkening to the words of someone that is sent by Yah, then these things manifest itself. So something to consider. Local fellowship, leadership, these kind of things are needed. While we don't have priests, we do have leadership, which the priests were the leaders. We need to have some sort of leadership to inspect individuals when things arise. Verse 9, when the plague of leprosy is in a man, then he shall be brought unto the priest. And the priest shall see him, and behold, if the rising be white in the skin, and it have turned the hair white, and there be quick raw flesh in the rising, it is an old leprosy in the skin of his flesh, and the priest shall pronounce him unclean, and shall not shut him up, for he is unclean. And if a leprosy break out abroad in the skin, and the leprosy cover all the skin of him that has the plague, from his head even to his foot, wheresoever the priest looks, then the priest shall consider, and behold, if the leprosy have covered all his flesh, he shall pronounce him clean. That has the plague, it is all turned white, he is clean. So there's something about this turning white thing here that's kind of interesting. And we see that here with David. And, actually, I want to pull that out. Just remember the cleansing white thing, because I want to actually read a little bit further before we actually read that. We'll learn a little bit about the healing first, and then we can do that. But when the raw flesh appears in him, he shall be unclean. And the priest shall see the raw flesh and pronounce him to be unclean. For the raw flesh is unclean, it is a leprosy. Or if the raw flesh turn again and be changed unto white, he shall come unto the priest. The priest shall see him, and behold, if the plague be turned into white, then the priest shall pronounce him clean. That has the plague, he is clean. Let's see, is it in here? I think it actually might be next week. Give me just a moment. We'll read it again if it comes up. Okay, so I want to talk about this turning white concept. Psalm 51, 1 through 11. Have mercy upon me, O Elohim, according to thy loving kindness, according unto the multitude of thy tender mercies, blot out my transgressions. Wash me thoroughly from my iniquity, and cleanse me from my sin. For I acknowledge my transgressions, and my sin is ever before me. Right? Imagine the leprous person, their sin is ever before them. Against thee only have I sinned, and done this evil in thy sight, that thou mightest be justified when thou speakest, and be clear when thou judgest. Behold, I was shapen in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me. Behold, thou desirest truth in the inward parts, and in the hidden part thou shalt make me to know wisdom. Now here we go. Now this is exactly we know this is tzara'at, this is leprous talk, because this is actually how the leper is cleaned, with hyssop. Purge me with hyssop, and I shall be clean. Wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow. That's what it's talking about here, right? If the plague be turned into white, then the priest shall pronounce him clean that has the plague. Make me to hear joy and gladness, that the bones which thou hast broken may rejoice. Hide thy face from my sins, and blot out all my iniquities. Create in me a clean heart, O Elohim, and renew a right spirit within me. Cast me not away from thy presence, and take not thy Holy Spirit from me. So this is all leper talk, because when one is sent out of the camp, they're sent out of the presence of Yahuwah. And here it is right here, Numbers 5, 1 through 3. And Yahuwah spake unto Moshe, saying, Command the children of Israel that they put out of the camp every leper, and every one that hath an issue, and whosoever is defiled by the dead, both male and female shall ye put out. Without the camp ye shall put them, that they defile not their camps, and the midst whereof I dwell. So that's what David's talking about here, right? Don't put me out of thy presence, right? Because of uncleanness. He's asking to be purged with hyssop, clean him, that he be white as snow, that his condition, his sara'at, would be cleansed, because in that Psalm 51 was actually for the one transgression he had, which was Bathsheba and Uriah, her husband. But we see, and the scriptures don't say that David got leprosy in his skin, but I think he acknowledged the internal condition of someone who is someone who is a leper. It's an internal thing. It's a direct result of sin, or a direct result of disobedience, or not listening to the word of Yahuwah, or not listening to a prophet, or whatever it may be. So David acknowledged that inside he was unclean. He was like as a leper, So that's why he was talking leper language with him. Leviticus 13:18, the flesh also, in which even in the skin thereof was a boil, and is healed, and in the place of the boil there be a white rising, or a bright spot, white and somewhat reddish, and it be showed unto the priest. And if, when the priest sees it, behold, it be in sight lower than the skin, and the hair thereof be turned white, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a plague of the leprosy broken out of the boils. Because you can see here, again, this is how I'm trying to relate it into a modern sense. The priest or the leader has to inspect and really take a close look of what's going on. And so because of accountability and whatnot, we need to have leadership in place to be able to inspect one's spiritual condition, or maybe even moral condition of what's actually really going on for the betterment of the whole camp, right? Leviticus 13:21, but if the priest look on it, and behold, there be no white hairs therein, and if it be not lower than the skin, but be somewhat dark, then the priest shall shut him up 7 days. And if it is spread much abroad in the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a plague, right? So it's spread all over the place, right? It's manifesting itself, right? Especially, again, how much more in the spiritual realm of things, when someone is really, got some issues inside, how abundantly clear does one make themselves when they're in those conditions? They usually make themselves very known very quickly. It's like they can't hide it, just like a leper can't hide its spots. someone in a spiritual uncleanness or this kind of condition cannot hide themselves. It's like Yahuah makes sure that they manifest themselves. Leviticus 13:23. But if the bright spot stay in his place and spread not, it is a burning boil, and the priest shall pronounce him clean. Or if there be any flesh in the skin whereof there is a hot burning, and the quick flesh that burns have a white bright spot, somewhat reddish or white, then the priest shall look upon it, and behold, if the hair in the bright spot be turned white, and it be in sight deeper than the skin, it is a leprosy broken out of the burning, wherefore the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is the plague of leprosy. It is sara'at. But if the priest look on it, and behold, there be no white hair in the bright spot, and it be no lower than the other skin, but somewhat dark, then the priest shall shut him up 7 days. And the priest shall look upon him on the 7th day, and if it spread much abroad in the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is the plague of tzara'at, of leprosy. And if the bright spot stay in his place, and spread not in the skin, but be somewhat dark, it is a rising of the burning, and the priest shall pronounce him clean, for it is an inflammation of the burning. And if a man or woman have a plague upon the head or the beard, then the priest shall see the plague, and behold, if it be in sight deeper than the skin, and there be in it a yellow thin hair, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a dry scall, even a leprosy upon the head or beard. And if the priest look on the plague of the skull, and behold, it be not in sight deeper than the skin, that there is no black hair in it, then the priest shall shut him up that has the plague of the skull 7 days. And on the 7th day the priest shall look on the plague, and behold, if the skull spread not, and there be in it no yellow hair, and the skull be not in sight deeper than the skin, he shall be shaven. But the skull shall he not shave, and the priest shall shut him up that has the skull 7 days more. And in the 7th day the priest shall look upon the skull, and behold, if the skull be not spread in the skin, nor be in sight deeper than the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him clean. He shall wash his clothes and be clean. If you can see the spiritual side of things in the realm of the spirit, like talking about how deep is it? How deep does a problem go? How much root has this sin or this problem within somebody, right? And these are the kind of things that a leader should be able to identify should be able to identify what's going on with a person. And, that also relates to, our family, friends, things like that. We can see these things when they manifest it, right? But if the skull spread much in the skin after his cleansing, then the priest shall look on him, and behold, if the skull be spread in the skin, the priest shall not seek for yellow hair, he is unclean. But if the skull be in his sight at a stay, and that there is a black hair grown up therein, the skull is healed, he is clean, and the priest shall pronounce him clean. If a man also or a woman have in the skin of their flesh bright spots, even white bright spots, then the priest shall look, and behold, if the bright spots in the skin of their flesh be darkish white, and is a freckled spot that grows in the skin, he is clean, right? So even when some things manifest, right? And so likewise, even when things manifest, there may not be a problem. The leader or the priest or just needs to look a little closer and be like, what's really going on here? And you might find out that there's no problem. That this person, had maybe done exactly what they're supposed to do, or it was a misunderstanding or something, because I'll tell you what, anytime you get a group of people together, you're going to have problems. Things happen. But it takes the priest, or in this case, again, in our time, the leader, or leadership, we'll call it leadership. There shouldn't just be one leader. There should be structure, organization. Leadership should inspect, make diligent inquisition, right, and see what's going on. And you may find that there is no tzara'at in somebody, right, that they don't have a condition. Verse 40, and the man whose hair is fallen off his head, he is bald, yet he is clean, right? And he that has his hair fallen off from the part of his head toward his face, he is forehead bald, yet is he clean. And if there be in the bald head or bald forehead a white or reddish sore, it is a leprosy sprung up in his bald head or his bald forehead. Excuse me 1 second. Verse 43, then the priest shall look upon it, and behold, if the rising of the sore be white reddish in his bald head, or in his bald forehead, as the leprosy appears in the skin of the flesh, he is a leprous man, he is unclean. The priest shall pronounce him utterly unclean, his plague is in his head. And the leper in whom the plague is, his clothes shall be rent, and his head bare, and he shall put a covering upon his upper lip, and shall cry, unclean, unclean. It's very embarrassing, right? So he's got to say it himself, right? So again, the leper in whom the plague is, his clothes shall be rent, and his head bare, and he shall put a covering upon his upper lip, and shall cry, unclean, unclean. All the days wherein the plague shall be in him, he shall be defiled. He is unclean. He shall dwell alone. Without the camps shall his habitation be. Again, you can see here that Yah makes sure that these people are known, that it cannot be. He can't hide it. They could not hide it back then. And I'm here to tell you, people can't hide it today. If they're in a very bad spiritual situation, or they're living in sin, or it's going to manifest itself. It comes out, so that people can see this and can take proper action when it's needed. Give them, in our time, day and age, it's proper counseling that people may need, edification, sharpening, rebuking, things like that, so one can humble themselves and repent, and hopefully Yahuwah will cleanse the person of their tzara'at, their inner spiritual leprosy. Right, whatever's wrong in their situation. All the days wherein the plague shall be in him, he shall be defiled, he is unclean. He shall dwell alone, without the camps shall his habitation be. The garment also that the plague of leprosy is in, whether it be a woolen garment or a linen garment, whether it be in the warp or woof or linen or of woolen, whether in a skin or anything made of skin, if the plague be greenish or reddish in the garment or in the skin, either in the warp or in the woof or in anything of the skin, it is a plague of leprosy, and he shall be showed unto the priest. And the priest shall look upon the plague, and shut up it that has the plague 7 days. And he shall look on the plague on the 7th day, if the plague be spread in the garment, either in the warp or in the woof, or in the skin, or in any work that is made of skin. The plague is a fretting leprosy, it is unclean. He shall therefore burn that garment, whether a warp or in the woof, or in woolen, or in linen, or in anything of skin wherein the plague is, for it is a fretting leprosy. It shall be burnt in the fire. So it's interesting that we've seen in the scriptures that garments can be used to deceive. We see that, in the case of Jacob, right? He put the hairy garment on to deceive his father, to make him think that he was Esau. There's a verse, I think it's in Zechariah, about how people would put on rough garments to deceive, right? Where else? Garments. There's other stories about garments, but even in clothing, it looks like it'll manifest itself, right? So again, Yahuwah is righteous in that people like this can't hide themselves. It just comes out. How much even more in today's world. And if the priest shall look, and behold, the plague be not spread in the garment, either in the warp or in the woof, or in anything of the skin, then the priest shall command that they wash the thing wherein the plague is, and he shall shut it up 7 days more. And the priest shall look on the plague after that it is washed, and behold, if the plague have not changed his color, and the plague be not spread, it is unclean. You shall burn it in the fire. It is fret inward, whether it be bare or within or without. And if the priest look, and behold, the plague be somewhat dark after washing it, then he shall rend it out of the garment, or out of the skin, or out of the warp, or out of the woof. And if it appear still in the garment, either in the warp or in the woof, or in anything of the skin, it is a spreading plague. You shall burn that wherein the plague is with fire. And the garment, either the warp or woof, or whatsoever things skin it be, which you shall wash, if the plague be departed from them, then shall it be washed the 2nd time, and shall be clean. This is the Torah. Let's see, yeah. So, we get to read a little bit about it next week. About the hyssop, okay. And the garment, either warp or woof, or whatsoever thing it is going to be, which you shall wash, if the plague be departed from them, then it shall be washed the second time, and shall be clean. This is the Torah of the plague of leprosy, and a garment of woolen or linen, either in the warp or woof, or anything to skins, to pronounce it clean or to pronounce it unclean. And that's where we'll stop here, and we'll see that we're going to continue to talk about this topic next week. So there's probably a couple of things that I'm going to read today that I might read again, but it's okay. Now let's look at Yahusha, right? Luke 5:12-16. And it came to pass, when he was in a certain city, behold, a man full of leprosy, tzara'at, who, seeing Yahusha, fell on his face and besought him, saying, Adonai, if you wilt, you can make me clean. Right? Because this man knows, right? This man knows the scriptures, and that Yahuwah gives the leprosy and Yahuwah takes it away. And so if he knew the miracles that Yahusha was doing, like, this is him, this is the man, this is the man of Elohim, whether he thought it was just a prophet or whatnot, he knew that he was a man of Elohim. And he put forth his hand and touched him, saying, I will, be you clean. And immediately the leprosy departed from him. So here we have someone that believes in the word, hearkening to the word, believing in the prophet, and his faith made him whole. And he charged him to tell no man, but go and show thyself to the priest, and offer for thy cleansing according as Moshe commanded, for a testimony unto them. But so much more went there a fame abroad, and great multitudes came together to hear and to be healed by him of their infirmities. And he withdrew himself into the wilderness to pray. So what do we see here? We see here someone unclean. We see them coming before Yahusha, believing in him. And Yahusha says, I'm going to heal you. Go do Torah. That's what he says, right? Right? He tells him to go do according as Moshe commanded. Right? So Yahusha, believe in me. I'll clean you. Keep the Torah. That's the gospel. Very short version. Mark 1:40-45. And there came a leper to him, beseeching him and kneeling down to him and saying unto him, if you will, you can make me clean. And Yahusha, moved with compassion, put forth his hand and touched him and said unto him, I will, be you clean. And as soon as he had spoken, immediately the leprosy departed from him, and he was cleansed. And he straightly charged him forthwith and sent him away, saying, see, you say nothing to any man, but go thy way, show thyself to the priest, and offer for thy cleansing those things which Moshe commanded, for a testimony unto them. So, again, believing, being made whole, Yahuwah gives, Yahuwah takes away. Luke 17:11-19. And it came to pass, as he went to Jerusalem, that he passed through the midst of Samaria and Galilee. And as he entered into a certain village, there met him 10 men that were lepers, which stood afar off. And they lifted up their voices and said, Yahusha, Master, have mercy on us. And when he saw them, he said unto them, Go show yourselves unto the priests. And it came to pass that as they went, they were cleansed. Right? So as they started, they weren't cleansed yet, but they turned and started walking to go do as he said. And because they were hearkening to him, they hearkened to the prophet, they hearkened unto Yahusha, the word, right? They were cleansed. They were healed. And one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back and with a loud voice glorified Elohim and fell down on his face at his feet, giving him thanks. And he was a Samaritan. And Yahusha answered and said, Were there not 10 cleansed? But where are the 9? They are not found that return to give glory to Elohim, save this stranger. And he said unto him, Arise, go thy way. Thy faith has made thee whole. Faith in the word, faith in believing what Elohim has said, faith in his Messiah that he sent. Let's talk a little bit more about being cleaned. 1 Peter 2. According to the foreknowledge of Elohim the Father, through the sanctification of the Spirit, unto the obedience and sprinkling of the blood of Yahusha, grace unto you and peace be multiplied. Right? This sanctification, this cleansing of the Spirit. So, when Yahusha died, was resurrected, went into the Father, right? The blood, right? His blood sanctifies us in the spirit, in the inner being, in the conscience. Hebrews 10:22, let us draw near with a true heart and full assurance of faith, having our hearts sprinkled from an evil conscience and our bodies washed with pure water, right? let him cleanse us. Let him make us clean. Although we all came to him unclean, let him clean us, right? And that we may walk in his way. 1 Peter 1:18-22, for as much as you know that you were not redeemed with corruptible things, as silver and gold from your vain conversation received by the tradition from your fathers, but with the precious blood of Messiah, as of a lamb without blemish and without spot, who verily was foreordained before the foundation of the world, whom by him do believe in Elohim, that raised him up from the dead and gave him glory, that your faith and hope might be in Elohim, seeing you have purified your souls and obeying the truth through the Spirit. That's a powerful verse right there. Purifying, cleaning our souls, right? Think about this condition, this condition that used to manifest itself in the skin, but in our in really the more spiritual and permanent sense, our souls have been purified by obeying the truth through the Spirit unto unfeigned love of the brethren. See that you love one another with a pure heart fervently. Ezekiel 36:24-27, for I will take you from among the heathen and gather you out of all countries and will bring you into your own land. Then I will sprinkle clean water upon you, and you shall be clean from all your filthiness, from all your idols. I will cleanse you. A new heart also will I give you, and a new spirit will I put within you. And I will take away the stony heart out of your flesh, and I will give you a heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit within you, and cause you to walk in my statutes, and ye shall keep my judgments and do them. Hallelujah. So again, we believe on Messiah Yahusha, we get cleansed, and we go do Torah. That's what we are to do. So with that, actually, this one wasn't as long as I thought it was going to be. With that, brothers and sisters, we're actually done with the Torah portion. We're actually going to be talking more about this next week in Metzora, which is the next two chapters, 14 and 15. A lot of people put these two studies together, and I probably could have done that, and we could have really all learned the same thing. So next week we might talk about some of the same things, but I wanted to maybe go a little more in depth about the healing part of it. So I probably should have saved those last verses that we just talked about, quite frankly, because we haven't talked about healing about it yet. So yeah, probably should have talked about that next week. But anyways, we can go over it again. With that being said, brothers and sisters, let's do a couple things. We're going to pray. We're going to do the priestly blessing. It's actually a new priestly blessing song, and by Brother Jake and myself, and probably do a couple more songs. It's Shabbat after all. We can do a couple songs. So with that, let's end this with some prayer. Heavenly Father, O Yahuwah, we come before you, and we bless you in Yahusha's name, and we thank you for cleansing us in our hearts and our ruach through the sprinkling of the blood of Messiah Yahusha that you sent for us. We thank you for all that you do, how you bless us. We thank you for allowing us to gather like this, and we pray you continue to open our eyes and ears that we may hear and see and to walk in your way in spirit and in truth, the way Messiah Yahusha taught us to do so. We say Shabbat Shalom to you, and we thank you for all things, O Yahuwah. Amen. So, brothers and sisters, hey, Shabbat Shalom to you. We're going to do a couple songs. I pray it blesses you. We'll start with the priestly blessing. We'll probably do the song of Moshe, and maybe, I don't know, we'll see. But with that, hey, Shabbat Shalom. I hope you enjoy it. If you have local fellowships tomorrow, I hope you enjoy those. If you're just hanging out at the house, hope you have a peaceful, restful day. And, hey, may Yah bless you and keep you. Shalom. יברכך יחוה וישמרך יאר יחוה פניו לך וחונקה יישא יחוה פניו לך לך שלום יישא יחוה פניו לך ויעשה לך שלום shalom yaseh lecha shalom.
Yahuwah bless you and keep you. Yahuwah make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yahuwah lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Yahuwah make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yahuwah lift up his countenance upon you